Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, byaibo, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to She Center, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _She Center _podcast, and follow us on Facebook at the She Center Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Hi, welcome back, guys, to yet another episode of She Center, the female podcast, where we listen to amazing stories from wonderful women everywhere. We're just returning from a 2-part series with our guests from the past 2 weeks, Prim Nyonyozi, and her episode and many others got me thinking about purpose, our purpose in life, and how in many cases, so many things that we have gone through as individuals, I would say in this case as women, always shape us, or I guess it depends on your perspective. They do usually shape our future and kind of give us, if you look at what you've been through and how it has shaped the person that you have become, it often gives you perspective. And if you have the right perspective, it might lead you to your purpose. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I've been thinking so much about this since I had a conversation, which I am going to share in just a few minutes, with my guest this week. And she is she's a brilliant young girl who is doing amazing work, empowering other women out there. I was able to know about her work when I was doing some research to find out about some of the organizations that are trying to do work to help women, because, I'm trying to do the same work, and I was trying to see, in the future, what kind of people will I be collaborating with, and, so on and so forth. And a cousin of mine was telling me about this program on UBC, I don't know what it's called, and how they share about, they always bring guests who are doing different things. And I watched this interview where this girl was talking about I'm going to introduce her in a few seconds. She was talking about the work that she's doing, and I was so inspired. I was thinking maybe she's older and stuff. She did look young, but wow. This girl is talking about, I finished university in 2018, and I'm like, 2018? Jesus, how old are you, and what is this work that you're doing? I am a huge fan of this, these young people are doing the most out there. Anyways, guys, let me introduce you to our guest today. I hope I don't say so much. I want you to listen, because this girl is out there doing a lot. But today is not about the work that she's doing. I am asking the question, what happened to you? Because as you all know, I want to find out how people get to where they are right now. What are the things that have inspired them to become the people that they are? And to do that, we are answering the question, what happened to you, which is based on a book by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. And this helps us to understand how our past experiences have shaped the person that we are right now and how we see the world. So, yes, I am thrilled to introduce today's guest. Her name is Pimer, Peace Monica. Peace is the executive director and founder of Nile Girls Forum, which is a girl-led organization dedicated to elevate resilient girls and young women through equitable leadership, sexual and reproductive health rights, and skills development. She's also recognized as one of Uganda's 40 under 40 elite, an honor she received in 2019. Mhm. Girl, Peace has an incredible story that answers the poignant question, what happened to you? Growing up in an extended family in Zombo district in northern Uganda, Peace never viewed her step siblings as anything but true siblings. The love and bond they shared deeply influenced her perspective on life. Despite the challenges, including the loss of her siblings and father, Peace's resilience has shaped her into the formidable leader she is today. Her journey from the nurses' quarters in Paidha, her mom was a nurse, to becoming a beacon of hope for young women in Uganda is truly remarkable. I'm telling you guys, this girl's story is amazing. From witnessing the struggles of women in her hometown to founding the Nile Girls Forum, Peace's story is one of determination, compassion, and unwavering faith. Today, she will share her experiences, the challenges she has faced, and the triumphs she has achieved. Whether you're new to our podcast or a loyal listener, get ready to be inspired by Peace's journey. So, without further ado, let's dive into the powerful episode with Pimer, Peace, Monica. Hi, Pima. That's quite an interesting name, actually. Like, I kind of like automatically put the R because I'm used to Prima or something like that. What does Pima mean? Mm.
So that name, very many times people really struggle to pronounce
Mm.
it. It's pronounced
Yes.
as Pimer.
Oh,
Pimer.
wow. Pimer. Is it
Yes.
French?
No, it's a Luo name, and it's by the Alu tribe.
Oh my
So they,
God. Is it your surname?
yes,
You guys have like I think the northern people in the north have the best names. Like their names are always very catchy, like
hmm
like Among, Akurut, and stuff like this. And you're always like,
yes,
is this your like what does this really mean? That's interesting. Like what does Pimer
yeah.
mean? Pimer.
So Pimer is gotten from the Alu tribe. So there are very many people
Uh,
called Pimer, and Pimer means
mm.
because of love.
Ah,
So mer is
love.
love, yes, and p. So when you
Wow.
add Pimer, it's because
Uh.
of love.
Oh my God, you've just taught me something. Like I have studied with all kinds of people from like all over, and like Pimer is, I know Akurut, Among, Opio, like all these other names, but I had never met, and I'm sure you're not that many. I don't think you're that many,
No,
but yeah, it's
but
good to know.
yes, but if you're around the people that from my tribe, you'll actually
Mm,
come across
you'd
it
find many.
oftentimes. It's quite common.
Wow. That's interesting. That's interesting. Anyways, how are you, Peace? I will just avoid that so that I don't disappoint my people. I'll avoid the
I'm
name. I might end
well.
up like breaking my tongue. But
Mm,
yes, thank you so much for jumping onto my invitation. I'm very, very grateful for that. And as I was sharing with you before the recording, I am hugely interested in you as a person, not that much into what you're doing. But of course, I guess if I get to know you or introduce you to my listeners, then they will be able to understand why you do what you do. And I've noticed of late that most people that I like, I even have people I've brought onto the show who have authored books about their lives. But then when they get to speak here, they always kind of put the link and tell their followers, if you need my story, like listen here, because it's like a summarized version of their book. And I believe it's quite often that we find people who ask us, how are you, what are you doing, or maybe have like a presumption, oh, Pimer is a good person, but why am I a good person? Or like, do you really want to know my story? I've found that these days many people don't really want to know who you are. They just want to meet where you are, like find you where you are and just start from there to kind of feel like they understand you. And as I shared, for me, my goal for the platform, particularly like the greater goal for the platform, is to bring together women from all walks of life to, for us to work as a collective action to help each other and to make it better. So in East Africa, my goal is East Africa. And I figured every time I talk about my vision, people are like, I don't understand what you're doing. So I was like, okay, now let me show you why I need a platform that helps women and helps people who are already doing the work to help women. And I figured before I just come out there and start a website and people still ask me those questions, I would have a podcast. And in this podcast, I can ask questions like to introduce people so that other women or other girls can listen and be like, oh, I see myself in Peace's story. I understand why she's the way she is, and maybe pick a few things. Someone texted me yesterday and said, oh, this is giving me perspective about my life because I'm listening to different people sharing things. And someone is like, oh, I'm a single mom. Someone told me I'm a single mom, and listening to this person's story has kind of prepared me for what I should avoid in the future because they have already gone through it. So I'm interested in asking what happened to you. And the question is, please share about your childhood and how you think it might have impacted the person that you are right now and how you see the world. And maybe because we don't know each other, like we literally just got to know each other just a few 2 days ago or 1 day ago. I would like you to also start off by introducing yourself because you've already told us, you come from the north. Many of my listeners may not be from specific regions. I try to make sure, I don't know if you've listened to my podcast. I have like my introduction is a greeting in different languages. And and I feel like I want to include everyone. So I would like someone from your tribe to also feel like, oh yeah, she's not only focusing on specific kinds of people. So yeah, introduce yourself and yeah, you can answer the question and I'll just follow up with whatever you want to say after.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rusty, and you're doing an amazing work. It's not
Thank you.
usual
Thank you.
that people come up with such great initiatives, and just even focus
Thank
on
you.
particularly, let me say, women sharing their story. It means a lot to me because not every day that someone would be interested in. So, what's your story like? And like you said,
Yeah.
they always
Yeah.
want to meet you at a certain point and move on. So, yes, my name is Peace. I think that's the simplest, but I have three names. So, there's
Yes.
Pimer,
Yeah.
there's Peace, and then there's Monica. And yes, I come from Zombo district. Zombo district is at the border of the Democratic Republic of Congo,
Oh.
but it's in the West Nile sub-region. So, like I said, northern Uganda has a number of sub-regions, and the West Nile
Yes.
sub-region is among those. So, growing up, I grew up pretty much in an extended family. I have siblings. So for me, I'm this kind of person who doesn't, believe when they say I have stepsisters or stepbrothers or half brothers.
Yeah.
For me, because
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
story is different and I look at life in a different way. So we grew up in an extended family where my mom was a nursing officer because she just recently retired, though early retirement. And in this extended family, we sort of did not put that barrier that Peace is a child to this particular mom, or Mario is a brother, or something like that. So for us, we grew up one big happy family. And for what I remember, we're about 15 children in one household.
From your dad,
And
or some of them cousins?
No, so we were siblings. There were the kids that are biologically from my mom, but then there are also these other kids that are from my stepmothers. So, but
Okay.
like I said, for us, we had no boundary.
Yeah.
For us, it looked like, we have
You
one
didn't see,
mom,
yeah.
one dad. Yes, I didn't see it because of that affection that, just came effortlessly.
Yeah.
So, growing up, I was really surrounded with amazing siblings, brothers, sisters. And the most interesting part is that I am the last born. So out of all many, I'm the
That's
last
so much
born.
love.
Exactly. So I pretty much enjoyed the love, but it also, the good thing is that it did not put me in this comfort zone. Of late, people talk so much about how lastborns are spoiled kids. They get everything that they want. So for me, it was like a challenge to me. Being the last born is like, I would prefer it to being that last person in line that breaks a curse or a spell. So I should not be the black sheep. of the
Mm.
family.
How
I'm
many
looking at
girls
myself.
are you in your family?
So along the way, we lost some of our siblings, but
Mm.
currently we are about 10. Yes, I think about 10
10 girls.
girls.
So more girls
Yes,
than
and
boys, yeah?
two. Yes, and two boys currently.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I
Mm.
lost a sister and also two
Oh,
brothers along the way.
sorry about
Yes,
that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So even along the way, the losses that we met, from my
Mm.
siblings to also our dad passing on, some of those things actually
Mm.
shaped the kind of person I later on
Mm.
grew up to be. So living in this
Mm.
nurses quarter in a place called Paidha in Zombo
Mm.
district, very humble
Mm.
background. Um, so there was a time when I remember there was a new school starting up, a new private school, and my dad
Mm.
was this kind of person that would want, just like any other parent that
Mm.
loves their children, go to the best
Mm.
schools, enjoy the best things
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
he came and said, "Oh, please, I really need you to join this school. It's a new
Mm.
school, private." So I remember enrolling. I joined, and for me, I had always been this kind of reserved child, but
Mm.
very crafty. So
Mm.
I,
Mm.
I, I only studied there for, I remember, primary one, and then
Mm.
primary two, I came to Kampala. So
Mm.
my mom and my dad decided that, oh, Peace is a very brilliant young girl, so let
Mm.
her have the opportunity to also study in Kampala. And yes, you never
Mm.
know how it goes along. So uh, came to Kampala. I was staying with one of my aunties, my maternal auntie.
Mhm.
And yes,
Mm.
she was amazing because she basically also helped me grow up
Mm.
in my journey.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, fast forward, when I reached senior one, that's when I
Mm.
started to see the need for me to actually start up something. And it's because my
Mm.
mom continually was working in the health centers. And
Mm.
for me, every holiday, we would actually
Mm.
go with my late sister, because from my mom,
Mm.
we were only two girls. Unfortunately, we
Mm.
lost her when she was in senior four. So
Oh.
we kept on. For us, it would be like, if it's holiday time, we're excited. Our dad would come and
Mm.
pick us, and then we travel by bus to Zombo.
Mm.
By then, it was called Navy
Yeah.
District. So,
Yeah.
and for me, what really hit me is that every single time I would go uh,
Mm.
to the village, I would see how these other young people, especially the girls, are having a hard
Mm.
time. And when you live in the
Mm.
nurses' quarters, the things that people talk about, a 14-year-old getting pregnant,
Yeah.
for you, you actually see it because you're living
Yeah. Yeah.
within those
True.
premises.
Yes,
And
that's
let
true.
alone
Yes,
also
true. Yeah.
having a mom who is a nurse would share quite
Mm.
a lot. So she would
Mm.
tell me, it breaks her heart to see young people really suffering and struggling. A
Mm.
woman comes to the labor ward, she even doesn't have
Mm.
a basic cloth, like a cotton kit to
Yeah.
just help her
Yeah.
after delivery,
Mm.
or even just transportation after she has
Mm.
delivered. So for me, some of those interactions I would have with my mom were very
So
interesting.
from a
And I
young age,
remember,
yeah, you were like
yes,
already exposed to this. Okay. Yeah.
exactly, because I remember I was very inquisitive, and there were times I would tell my mom,
Mm.
"Oh, I would love to come to your workplace, and as you're having a ward round, I would also want to move around with you and
Mm.
see how you do your
Mm.
work." So, being the open mother that she is, she would let me,
Mm.
and she'd be like, "Okay, so this is what we
Wow.
do. So this is how you
Mm.
prescribe. This is the purpose for this medication. This is our
Mm. Did she
outpatient
work in a hospital
department."
or like a small like clinic?
So she worked in a health center 4 and
Oh,
health
okay.
center 3.
Mm.
Yes, and
Mm.
I remember she was in charge in one of the departments in the arts clinic. So you would
Mm.
imagine also how emotional it would get, because there are also these other girls coming in, and some of
Mm.
them have been living with HIV and they even had no idea.
Yeah.
So all these
Yeah.
things, when I would come back to Kampala and I'm in school and I'm looking at, wow, we are
Were
so
you in boarding
privileged.
school in Kampala?
Yes, I was in boarding school. I remember I was only in day from nursery to primary 5. So primary 6 onwards, I was in boarding school. And so for me, when I remember when it was like a visitation and some children were crying because their parents had not visited them. For me, I would be like,
I
oh,
know,
you
you're
should
like,
be
you have no
lucky.
problem.
You have no idea what people are actually going through out there.
Yeah.
Yes. So long story short, just to bring it fast forward, so when I kept on telling my mom about these things, I finished my secondary from St. Lawrence Academy Schools and Colleges. So I remember when I was now going into the university, I really hadn't yet figured out exactly what I wanted to do, because in senior 6 in A level, my passion was, okay, I can do physical sciences. So I did physics, economics, mathematics. And so when we're joining the university, that's when it hit me. I still hadn't like really, really figured out, but I had this burning desire of helping the community. So when I got into university, I went to Victoria University in Kampala. And I remember in my final year, that's when I think it really hit me like, you need to do something, because we had internship placements. But unfortunately, I was not doing exactly what I was supposed to do exactly. Like, for example, in my internship, I was doing procurement and logistics management. And unfortunately, when it was time for the internship placement, I was placed in a bank. So you can imagine what exactly was I even going to do in the bank. And unfortunately, still, I could have learned quite a number of things in the bank. But the bank that I was working in, doing internship rather in, was a little bit more restricted. And they said, banking has a lot of confidential information, and you wouldn't want to trust an intern with so much information, especially around finances and customers. Yes, so for me, so along the way, I even did not complete the internship. And that's when I knew that, I could actually change something. I could start an organization that is reaching out to young people, to women, to girls, but at the same time also providing for them internship opportunities and also job opportunities. So along the way, that's how in 2018, after finishing in 2017, in 2018, I actually remember walking to the NGO bureau, young as I was, naive as I was. And I remember telling them I wanted to open an organization, of course, after talking to my mom. And she was really excited about it. So she was very supportive throughout the process. So when I walked into the NGO bureau, and then, they gave me the requirements and told me, so these are the things that you need to bring in order for you to get the certificate and registration, the certificate of registration and the permit to operate as a non-government organization. So by Feb 2018, I actually had those documents, and the rest, the rest is really history. Because there are very many instances where people keep thinking, Nile Girls Forum is a community-based organization, a CBO, and I keep on correcting them. No, it's a non-government organization. Because even as much as I was really this go-getter, along the people would tell me, but why would you want to start an NGO? Why don't you start something small? Yes. So people oftentimes were telling me that starting a non-government organization is a big thing for a young person, because they would equate the UN, World Health Organization, or those other bigger organizations that, are quite popular, that we've all grown up knowing. But, there is something important when you know your true purpose and your calling in life. You'll not take the other side. Of course, people always talk to you, advise you. But when someone advises you, it's really up to you to see what works for you and what does not.
True.
So
very, very true.
So So I remember by February 2018, I had the certificate of registration with a permit to operate. And, starting an organization is really another sport, I could say.
Yeah, true.
Because for us, it
Yeah.
took us 4 years to actually get our first funding. So
Who are you with? Like, did you finally get like co-founders, or how was this?
So by the time I was registering, of course, when I had these thoughts, I told a number of friends, oh, we can do it. But then, not everyone is walking the same path with you. I may be your friend.
Not everyone sees your vision. Yeah. Yeah. True.
Exactly. I may be your friend and you're telling me, oh, please, there is this podcast I'm starting. And I'll be like, okay. But because I have
I don't see
other,
it.
yes, I don't
Yes.
actually see where it's going. So it's quite
Yeah.
difficult to wake up every morning and say, oh, let me get a number of ladies. And because I know
Exactly.
5 years, 10 years later, it would be something else.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
yes, so definitely I had friends around who were like, yes. But along the way, you'd see the interest. I mean, there is no money, and for everyone, we all need to
It
earn
wasn't their
something.
calling.
Yes.
Yeah, it
And I
wasn't their
understand.
calling. Yeah.
Yes, and I understand when someone says, oh, I need the money, because we all have to meet our
Yeah.
needs. But at the same
Yeah,
time,
true.
everything is a process. So it's important for us to also trust the process, that things just don't happen overnight.
True.
So
Very
2018,
true.
with the permit, it was just peace standing with a permit to operate.
Yeah.
I had a number of friends coming in and saying, oh, I would really want to volunteer with you. I would want to, walk this journey with you. And I remember tell them, you're much welcome. However, get ready.
I don't
We'll
have
have
money.
a whole day without having lunch, without having tea, because even myself, I really don't, I cannot afford that.
Yeah. So
And I
did
remember
you
they would say,
when just for clarity, when you started the organization after registering and everything, so did you move back home to do the work, or were you doing this from a distance in Kampala?
so by the time I registered, the first activities, I remember us going to Sanyu Baby's home. And when I went to Sanyu Baby's home, I was with one of the friends that really stuck around this entire time, and
Yeah.
then a cousin. So we went and we just bought a few things and took to Sanyu Baby's home. Then from then, the next thing we did, I remember most of the activities was in Zombo. I think also basically because
What's that?
it's Zombo district where I come
Okay.
from.
Sorry. I thought that meant something. You said it in a different way. So when you were there, what were you doing there?
So when I got there, when you start up something, it's easy for the people that know you to give you the spaces to do what you really want to do.
True.
So for me, that was like a fast fallback plan. And what I used to pretty much do around that time was to go to schools and distribute mathematical sets, pens, books, especially for the candidates that would be
and you
sitting for
bought
their
these
final
yourself?
examinations. Yes, with the help of my mother.
Wow.
And I remember the first time I actually did that, I asked her for about 50,000 Uganda shillings. She told me, oh, so what are you going to use it for? I said I was going to buy a box of sanitary pads and mathematical sets and pens. So that is exactly what I bought. And by then,
how many
my
did
mom
you
was,
buy? Because 50K these days is like nothing.
by then it was 2018, so probably
okay.
it would
Because
do something.
I've been away from Uganda for a long time, but most times I come back for holidays. Like I hold money in my hands, and it's just like I'm like, wait, this thing used to cost like 20,000. Now it's like
Exactly.
100,000. Yeah.
Exactly. I
Wow.
don't remember
Okay, that's
so
good.
well, like the breakdown of the prices of the things.
What you got?
But
Yes. Yeah.
yes, so my mom by then was still working up country, only that she was now working in a different health center, still within the district. So when I went with all these things. Then I remember I went with a printed shirt I think she gave me some money to print like 2 or 3
Nice.
shirts.
Branding, huh?
Yes, branding on the onset. I actually still have that first shirt
Wow.
that we made.
Yeah.
So when I reached, I told her I needed to go to this secondary school, and she told me, "Okay, I have a boda guy, those motorcycles. So I have this guy that can actually take you. I trust him." So the distance from where my mom was working at that new health facility, it was about 30 to 40 minutes for a motorcycle ride. So this guy took me to the school, and I remember I had a smartphone, but you know those phones that are blurry. You take a photo and you cannot figure out exactly who is in the photo. So
Yes.
so I go with this guy, and I request him to actually wait for me because for those that have been in Zombo district, it's quite remote and the road network is poor.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and
You might
also
take
in
a
terms
while
of
to see
getting
another
transport.
border.
So especially when you're going to do that kind of work, you would rather go with that same person and then they actually wait for you because of also the network issues.
Yeah.
Yes, so I went with him, and I remember talking to the senior 4 and senior 6 candidates who would be sitting for their final exams by then. And I went, basically talked, in the easiest entry point for for people doing work around women and girls is usually distributing sanitary wear and having a little bit of career guidance talk. So I went talked to the candidates, and yes, I remember it was that same border man that I gave my phone to help me take some of the photos. So he helped me take. Of course, he was not that good with photography, but at least he took some pictures. And along the way, I also got some of the students I was talking to actually take the photos. And I remember out of those students that I talked to, one of the girls came and approached me. Her name is Patra. And you'd just be amazed that Patra currently is among the staff at Nile Girls Forum. And she's doing our monitoring and evaluation.
Wow.
And it's just one of the things that really humble me. And when you're doing things, sometimes you feel like you don't have that sense
was
of
she
direction.
in secondary school? Because
yes, she was in secondary school. She was doing her final exams in senior 6. So she approached me and she told me I'd really want to join your organization. And I was like, yeah, sure. I have no problem. So I gave her my number. I remember writing it on a piece of paper. And she told me, yes, I'll call you once we are in for the holidays. And indeed, when she was in holidays, she gave me a call. And the rest is history. So those were really the humble beginnings. And if you go to our Facebook page, those blurry photos still exist. I did not delete them because it makes me also really appreciate how far we have moved as an organization. And yes, and it gives hope that, the future is always bright.
Wow. That's so amazing. I think for someone out there who might listen to this and they have a vision, they have a plan, you've literally just described most of the challenges that many people face. Like even me myself starting out this podcast, you like there are so many people. Someone has said, Resti, like this doesn't make sense. What exactly are you going to do? I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to start something. And I was like, if I don't start, then I'll just keep thinking about it. And then it might just be one of those things that you thought about and you never did. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start. I have no clue what I'm going to do, but I'm going to start. And along the way, I was actually recently telling my husband, I was like, wow, like I couldn't believe. Even a friend of mine was saying, I can see your content, there is a difference in when you started out and how you are going right now, and so many things I was doing like initially. And I think when you look back, that's the stuff that kind of like grounds you and kind of keeps showing you why like you're doing what you're doing. Because if you always start out with success, like you have everything that you need, funding and everything, then there's that thing where you won't appreciate exactly what you went through. But if you start from struggling, then every moment when someone comes and says, yes, I'm giving you people money, you just be like, man, there are times when we didn't have anything, we had to work with this and this. And your team also, like I think that's team building. Like you get to connect together because you have this shared experience. But before we move on to ask more about, like, for you to share about exactly what you're doing, I wanted to just go back a little bit in your study, like school times and growing up. How was because I can see now what you're saying, like you're a determined person, you have determination, you're a person who is a go-getter. Where did this come from? Do you have any thing that you remember in your childhood that would tell you, yeah, yeah, it's because of this that I am the way I am? Or was it something that you've always had from when you were a child?
Yes, I think for me it was that moment where I had to leave uh, my mom and my dad were, and then coming to
Mm,
live with my auntie. You know,
mm,
sometimes as children, when you're growing up
mm,
in your comfort zone, there are very many things you get away
mm.
with. So
Yes,
for
yes.
me, so when I came to stay with my auntie, it was something like
Mm,
I don't need my auntie to make a phone call to my mom saying Peace is being a headache, Peace is doing this, she's
yes,
or she's
yes.
not doing well in school. So for me, I always
Mm,
lived out my life in a way that that is something that I should myself be proud of, but also the people that love me should be
mm,
proud of. So in everything I
mm,
did,
mm,
I was also always looking around me. I need to make my mom proud. I need to make myself proud. I don't need to let things come along the way and divert my purpose and my goal. Yes. So in everything I did, I was very cognizant
mm,
of myself because, like I told you, I'm a last born and I
mm,
didn't want to be that failure.
mm,
You know, that last
mm,
straw of the
mm,
family. For me, it's like,
mm,
I am the one that is going to make this family stand solid. I'm the one that is going to, create and
mm,
do things
mm,
that my siblings could not do. My parents, my mom, my dad
mm,
could not do. So
mm, mm,
it also, I think, portrayed. Most of the times, I'm more of an introvert. I would love to just have my space, and I think. And for
mm,
me, when I think, I want to
mm,
also at the same time make sure that what I have in plan is actually of good impact to the people that are
mm,
around me.
mm,
Um,
mm,
but also the other thing along the way, as I kept on losing, like my sister that I told you I lost, me and her were
mm,
very, very close. And I
mm,
think at that point I looked at myself. I was in senior one when she passed on. She was in
mm,
senior four. And the bond
mm,
that we had was too close that
mm,
it sort of affected me. And so for me, it's like now that I am alone, I need to be
mm,
focused. There is no one here
mm,
going to tell me to act right. It is
mm,
now me to
mm,
actually act
mm.
right. Um,
Yeah.
then the other thing that happened, I lost our eldest brother. Our eldest brother passed
Mm,
on around 2017. And around that time, I
mm,
remember being hopeless. There is one thing I learned recently that they were saying Ugandans are just one sickness away from poverty. Like, if you fall sick today and they give you a hospital
yeah.
bill, you know how
Mm,
it's
yeah.
medical care is expensive. I
Yeah.
remember around that time my brother was sick and the finances were, it
Too
was a
much.
very
Yeah.
difficult moment to keep up with the hospital bills. You're in, out, in, out, in, out. And it was in that moment that I thought the importance of
Mm,
social capital for me, as much as I was really young at that point, but I was imagining if only I knew someone who could come through, who could support me. But at that point, you're young, you don't even have the social capital, you don't have the networks around you, you've not built a network around you, because when you're in need, even when someone just gives you time and says, can we pray over the phone? Can you come and we catch up over coffee and we just have a conversation? It makes you feel better. And so it was around that time that I said, it's high time I built my social network, but also it's high time I did something that would not put other people in the same situation that we had to go through when my brother was sick or when I lost my sister, because there are many people out there that lose their loved ones and go into a depression. Thank God I did not when I lost my sister.
Yes.
So how about those that don't have that supportive family that I have, or even the social capital that I've created around me? So all these things gave me that determination to actually start the Nile Girls Forum, because this is a place where women and girls can feel safe. This is where they can be taught a skill to earn a living, but also it's where you can just come and cry and just be in the moment and let go of things.
It's a safe space. Yeah. Wow. And are you open to share about the passing of your dad as well? Because I don't know, did this happen way earlier when you were still young, or did it happen also recently?
Yes, it was way earlier when I was still young. I remember I was in primary 6, and we all know that it's not easy growing up without a parent, without a sibling, without a guardian. So for me, at that point, I remember losing my dad in primary 6. And one of the most fond memories I have was the fact that that particular day when my father passed on, he passed on from Zombo district where we were staying. But then by that time I was in Kampala, still at my auntie's place, and my mom had also been sick around that time, so she had come over to Kampala. So we get this news, my dad had passed on, but by then I was already studying in Kampala. I was in primary 6, and like I mentioned, one of the really most humbling moments and memories that I hold dearly was that the pupils in my class by then, I think that the whole class actually came home with my class teacher. And for me, that I still hold dearly. It's something that I've never forgotten. I remember how my classmates came and they made contributions and prayed with me and encouraged me. So after my dad passing on, that's when for me, even like I mentioned to you, as much as I was the last born and let alone a girl, I knew that it is now time for us to stand in that gap. We may not absolutely feel it, but stand in that gap for our mom, but also for the family. Losing a parent is never anyone's desire. So for us, that point when I lost my dad, it was now upon us to fill in the gap, do the best that we could to leave a legacy, and and also make sure that we are a true representation of what he would want us to be. And so along the way, I think it also really shaped the way I related to people, the way related to our mom. Because, for kids, especially when there's the mom and dad, sometimes there are certain things your mom does and you're like maybe overreacting about it. And for me, it was now about seeing that, thank God she's still alive. So we would do certain things that would actually make her proud. All right. Yes. So for us, it's about having a family that is compassionate, that supports one another, that celebrates one another. And that is one thing that the loss of our dad taught us, that we be a strong family, one happy one, that even when we have issues as a family, we find the
Yeah.
best ways to resolve it. And it still also greatly impacted on me starting the organization, because there are very many people in life that struggle with knowing their identity or finding an identity.
Yeah.
As much as for me, I've lost my dad. There are those that dad's actually alive, but they're absent in their lives. So, how best can we also make sure that what we do, how we relate with these people, and that is why I appreciate you really to get to know people's stories, before you even have
Yeah.
that judgment of how they live their lives, why they choose the things they choose to do. Yes, and so that
Yeah.
really had a great impact.
Yeah. And that's really great. And do you feel like, because I can see you've said, for instance, like the passing of your dad, how it impacted you and your siblings. It gave you a perspective, first of all, community, like you need the people you love to help you to go through what you're going through, and you need to work harder so that whatever it is that you went through, for instance, the people you lost, how they died or whatever they went through, so that it doesn't happen to another person. And I think, um, I have heard it said, many people say, and also I think it's all probably something that we can pick from the Bible. I don't know if you're a Christian, but I feel like your story, I relate to it in a way that I had my holidays a lot in the village. Like growing up, I used to have holidays like up country at my grandma's place, and around me would be, when we were young from primary, everything is okay until you get to like 12 years old. And then you come back for holidays, and your friend has, like, one of the girls you play with is now pregnant. She has a child. And then 2 years later, you're in S3, that person now has a second child. And you're like, what's happening? Like everyone in the village who is around my age is, you know, pregnant, or they're going through some serious issues. Like maybe, like for instance, I had some cousins, like my grand aunt was taking care of them, and then she passed on, and out of the blue, they had nowhere to live. They had to come and stay with my grandma, and it was something that, to me, every time I went to school, of course, I had those problems of, because I lived both in the village and in Kampala, and I had like a dual life. But I had that, I was so exposed in a way that when I went to school, I saw life in a completely different way. Like I related to people who were less than in a different way, because I could see their pain. I'd experienced it from people who were close to me. So moving into my university, after when I was done with university, I did study, and I worked for a USAID based, like, funded program, and it was like in remote villages. And I would say that's basically one of the things that like the main thing that inspired me to start this thing, because it started from listening to stories of young girls and women who were going through adversity that, like, my mind my mind, like, they say, being an open-minded person doesn't only mean to go, like, to visit like abroad or something. Like even visiting your own village or the people around you and seeing it in a different perspective. I even had a podcast episode where I brought on one of my former colleagues who I worked with, and we were sharing about what we experienced. It was not only both a long-term impact, but it's something that truly inspired me, because hearing a young girl tell me something like, yes, my dad is alive, but he's not paying my school fees because he chooses to use the money to drink. And how much is money really to go to school? Mostly like secondary school, there's USE, and she couldn't go to school. So she was like, yeah, Rusty, if I find a guy and he likes me, I'm going to, sleep around with anyone who can give me the list. So for her to tell me something like that, and then we meet another girl who is like 8, 9 years old, and her dad is sexually harassing her, and like all those stories, like I would leave the field and my heart is so heavy. And I remember having a huge discussion with my M&E, like the monitoring and evaluation officer in the field. And I was telling him, okay, we are here, we collected the data, we've given it to you guys. What are you going to do? Like, shouldn't they arrest this guy who is doing this? And she's like, no, our job is to collect the data and give it to the government. And I'm like, really? So I kept like reaching out to a friend of mine because he was working there. Now he advanced to M&E. And I was asking him, I was like, did they ever do anything about this kid? He's like, man, Rusty, you know how the government, like how our government is, even if the money is there, like there's not that much that can be done. And I was like that thing stayed heavy on my heart for me to know that there's a girl out there. It's okay for you to read a story. Even you see a story on TV can impact you that bad. Now imagine having to face this person, like you said, seeing this when you were young, meeting these girls up to now. Their stories are stories that push me every day because I was like, I might not go back and help these particular girls, but I can at least try and see if I can try and help the other person. And I was thinking, I was like, as a Christian, this is a kid who is praying every day and saying, God, please come and take me out of my situation. But they have no clue that there is someone whose life they impacted. And I'm out here, I'm trying to do, like, every day, I'm trying to do everything that I can so that I can go back and pull out that girl and bring them to where I am, because telling these stories on this podcast, it's even getting so emotional for me. Like, stories that have to do with women are very, very passionate. Like, I'm passionate about it because I'm listening. My previous guest, Prima, told me how she came from poverty. Like, she even described it as utter poverty. She was like, they were so poor, they struggled, and she went through all this stuff. And I want this girl who is in, I don't know, in your district to listen to this and listen to Prim's story and say, there's hope for me. I need a person who is in my district to also hear and say, oh, Rusty, we used to play with her and look at where she is. It's not like we have made it, but we are doing something in their lives that is it's different from what maybe statistics would suggest would end up becoming. So it's very inspiring, and I think that's what, because I listened to your story on UBC, like, you didn't share your story. They were asking like obvious questions of, yeah, tell us about this. But I was like, I really need to reach out to this girl. So I followed your whatever. And then I was like, I need to see, like, I want to know what inspired her, because there has to be a story behind this. There has to be something that has inspired her to do that. And I want other people to hear about it so that any person who is going through what she's going through, like any person who sees you fighting, walking around, you said walking around with sometimes you don't look as good as you're promising people, the things you're promising people. But for that person to hear your story, they would now understand and be like, oh, now I understand why Peace is so passionate about helping women, because it makes so much sense that it had to be her past life that has gotten her there. So I want to thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing, because many people come from that kind of life. They see that stuff, but they choose not to help. They choose to move on from that and go away and never go back. And I have this thing I keep telling people: when you get away from a situation, you gain perspective. Like the day I left Uganda, I had I was living in Kampala for after when I was old. And then when I went deep in the villages and saw the life there, I started to appreciate my life in Kampala. I was like, oh my God, like, thank God, like, there are kids out there who don't even have, a meal in a day, and they're in class. They don't even have shoes. They don't have, like you said, like sanitary towels and all this stuff. And I'm out here throwing away all these things. Like, it gave me perspective. And now living in Europe, every time I look at the news or remember the life of people, hear stories of people, I'm thinking, no, something has to be done. Like, we can't just neglect these things, because how can I proudly call myself a Ugandan, and yet my fellow sisters are out there going through what they are going through. Like, I would rather like, people don't associate me with poverty. Like, I would want someone to say, oh, I see your country people are doing better. Like, because even if you come out here and live a lavish life, when people see you and they say you're from Uganda, they're not going to see you. They're going to see what they have heard about Uganda. Like, they'll just be like, oh, the country where this and this is happening. Like, I don't want that to be the story. I want the story to be, oh, I see how you people are trying to, upgrade yourself. So I wish that every woman, every man, every whatever out there can go back and pick on from what they have seen in society and be the change, not wait for the government to come. Like, you can go on the streets and fight, government, give us pads, the necessities that we need, but you chose to go back and be that change. And that's something that I can tell you, like, I'm really proud of that. I don't know you, but hearing your story, I'm very proud of the person that you are. And if you ever get to a point where you're feeling like, man, why am I even dying for these things? Like, let me just do my own thing. I would like you to remember that you are not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the future generation, because we've heard so many stories of Martin Luther, Oprah, all these guys, their stories inspire us, but it's very hard for us to even imagine. Like, imagine Mandela was in prison for how many years? Like, can you ever imagine you would be in prison
Can't
because of a
even.
nation? No.
Uh-huh.
You can't. Like, me suffer because, but like you just said, you are willing to work, but you didn't have the money. And you said, let me get my own money and do this work. And like you said, these are the memories that you look back and they push you further, because your vision is your vision. And no matter how much you try to explain it to someone else, they won't get it, because it's not their ordained, like, that's not what God prepared them to do. They maybe have been prepared to be presidents, but for you, your goal and your whole purpose in life is to uplift other people and bring them up to a level that's close to what you are living. And like you said, this one girl, you met her. I would really love to meet this girl one day. I can't believe that someone who you are trying to help is now working with you. That's amazing, because she is the story in your project, because she is the person you just say, I don't have anything to say. Here is this girl who I met when I barely had anything. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And I hope to meet this girl one day because it would be
Yeah,
amazing to
sure, you
hear
should.
her story. And because I'm
Yes,
sure
you should.
even her story
Very.
matters in this part. So
Mm.
before we conclude, maybe you can just say a little bit what, like, expound more on what you guys are doing and how people can find you. And like, yes, you told me about donations and stuff. Maybe just briefly before we finish, like, how do you navigate this kind of life and how can people find you? Some people usually listen to my podcast and they're like, oh yeah, please get me the contact to that person. I maybe never know, some big billionaire might be listening to this podcast and they're like, I want to give that girl money. So just speak like as if Bill Gates is listening to this podcast. Yeah, just tell
Thank
us
you
a bit
so.
about what you do. Just a little bit about what you do and how people can be able to help. And yeah, and maybe to conclude, you can tell us, like, what you can tell a girl out there that's listening based on your experience.
Thank you so much, Rusty. I've really had a very, very great
Yeah.
time, and we could talk over and over and over.
Yeah,
And yes, so
I know.
about about Nile Girls Forum,
Mhm.
started in 2018. I've already given a little bit of the story, and we are young women led. So
Mm,
even when in terms of our program design and the work that we do, we
mm,
primarily target adolescent girls and young
mm,
women and in their diversity. So we
mm,
work with the refugees, we work with those living in
mm,
slums, also those
mm,
with disabilities. And basically,
mm.
for us, we're looking at the one woman having different intersectionalities. You can be peace,
Yeah.
but you have these other compounding vulnerabilities that you deal with. You could be with a disability, you could be a refugee. So
Mm,
how do you design programs that also make sure people are not left behind? Uh, we work
mm,
around 4 thematic areas on leadership, sexual reproductive health,
mm,
climate justice,
mm,
economic development, and peace
mm,
building. So for us,
mm,
peace is really vital in everything that we do, because in order for us to even have these interventions taking place, but also for the communities to accept them, if someone doesn't have peace in their life, leave alone the outside peace, that absence of war and all that,
mm,
but the
mm,
inner peace
mm,
within them, then
mm,
what you do is just be
mm.
like a drop in the ocean. So we
Yeah.
really have this network. We call it the Peer Pals movement. It's a movement of the adolescent girls
Mm,
and young women. There are
mm,
currently over 200 of them, and it's still
mm.
open for anyone to join as long as you're below the age of
Yeah.
30. You can join and be part of this
Mm,
safe space where we meet every Saturdays to just connect with other fellow young women, adolescent girls, and share our stories and encourage others, but also build our capacity on emerging issues that, are happening across the world. And the greatest thing any woman can have is information. And for us, that is why it is very important that we equip the young women and these girls with information. Because once you're informed about something, then you can do something about it. The solution is closer to you. So this network, you can reach out to us on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, on TikTok too. We have a TikTok page. And all the names are at Nile Girls Forum, just the way you hear it. And the other thing that we actually have coming up soon, we are going to set up a skilling center where we not only have the leadership trainings, so it will be like a school program, but at the same time, we have a department where girls are getting skilled. So right now, some of our products that these girls make from these different communities. So in Uganda, we're currently in the districts of Zombo, of Arua, Terego, and also in Kampala, we're in the urban slum side of Kampala, in Kamocha. We have an office in Kamocha. But for upcountry, we also have a field office and field staff in Paidha, Zombo. So in order for you to reach out to us, you can still get to our website. It's www.nilegirlsforum.org. But also you can reach out to us on +256 785 199 199. So feel free to reach out to us and see how you can support, for example, our stall that is at Fairway Hotel in Kampala. If you go right there, there is a hub where there are products being sold, and you'll see one with a placard of Nile Girls Forum with our logo. And yes, for every purchase you make, you're definitely supporting a woman. You're helping them realize their dreams and getting them out of that situation that has really been holding them for so long. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Because what you're doing is like, that's economic empowerment, mental empowerment, and like you're doing like a 360 of a woman and a girl and how to help them. I'm very happy. Like, I'm always happy to hear that people are doing work like this, because it's work like this that inspires us, and you don't have, one thing I would like listeners to know is, like, you don't have to be like Peace and be like, okay, I have to do this work. Like, it's not your calling. Your calling might be just to go on mobile money and send money and let Peace do the work, because everyone has been built like different in a specific way. So I really hope that I will put in the show notes, and also on social media, when I'm posting this, I'll put like your handle, and in the show notes, I'll put your website so that people who are listening or even in the future can be able to find you. But thank you so much, Peace. This has been a very inspiring conversation, and I definitely would love in the future to collaborate with you when the whole vision that we have is up, and to meet this girl. What's her name?
Patra.
The girl that you mentioned. Patra.
Yes, her name is
I would
Patra,
definitely love to meet Patra. She sounds like she has a very amazing story. She sounds like she has a very amazing story. Hi, Patra, if you're listening to this, I'm one of your fans now. Yes. So maybe before we conclude, if you could just say a word to any woman out there or any girl out there that's listening, what would you want to say to them?
For me, it's not letting your past define you, and that there is power in your story. There is no story that doesn't deserve to be heard, and you can always find your true identity when you let go of the past and build blocks on it, so that you don't keep regrets, you keep blaming other people. It's about what you can do with your life now. You can start a new chapter, you can open a new page today and rewrite that story. So the power is definitely with you.
Yes.
And it's also really important that you keep your faith in God. I'm a Christian, and one of the things that has really kept me going is prayer. because I believe that there is hope. And one of the things I keep saying is that I do not have an idea of someone who does not believe in God. I don't know how they carry on to the next day, because things can be so overwhelming. And and for you to actually have that network of people around you, never hold on and go through things alone. Share it with someone. Like they say, a problem half shared is already half solved. Problem shared is half solved. So reach out to someone, and do not fail and reach a point where you have not yet found your identity. Keep chasing, keep asking God, what is that one thing that that is my calling, that is my purpose. Yes, and I wish you all the best, and have an amazing week.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And guys, just to conclude, thank you so much, Peace, and for the work that you're doing. Please keep going, because it's people like you that inspire us to do better. And I know that any woman out there, even if they have not gone through what you're going through, they should be listening and saying, wow, that's amazing for someone to, passionately do something like this. And to the people who are listening, I hope that you can not only tap into that mobile money or whatever it is and help Peace do what it is that she's doing. If you feel like you have been inspired by her journey and what she's doing, if you need proof, we are providing the proof for you. We're going to put the show in the show notes. I'm going to put the link. Please support Peace and help her out with what her vision and what it is that God has put on her heart to do. And please share this episode so other people can be able to listen and comment. And thank you so much, Peace. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is She Center, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.